A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining me yet again on Uctv. We get to bring the stories that are making headlines in our country. My name is Nora Sende. Today it is the 28th of July 2024. Thank you so much for staying with us as we discuss some of very pertinent issues that are concerning us, not just us, but as Christians. Now, today is a day that actually we get to celebrate the elders, and it so happens that the Holy Pope Francis chose this very day, that's the 28th of July, to celebrate the elders. And he chose a Bible verse from the Psalms of 71 that says, "Do not cast me off in my old age." Something that the elders or the old people or people who have become of age can really relate to it. Now, the theme for the 2024 celebrations of the World Day for the elderly or the grandparents is "Do not cast me off in my old age." That's according to Psalms 71. I must say, in our society today, we can see so much of that happening, especially in regards to the elders. So many people have been cast away, they have been forgotten just because of their age. And that is one thing that we are here to discuss on what this celebration is all about. So with me, I have a gentleman in studio who is actually Emma. Emma, you could actually introduce yourself. Thank you so much for making time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Antezi Emmanuel, and I am from Our Lady of Africa, Mbuya Parish. We are so excited and very happy to really enjoy this day of the elderly. And we thank our church leaders, especially our Holy Father, Pope Francis, to come up with this theme, that do not cast me away in my old age, as it has been introduced. And we really see that in society there is a challenge in this era, in this with some sections of people, some groups of people, some age bracket people, especially the elderly.
Especially, yes.
Yes.
Emma, thank you so much for that introductory. I just want to understand, why do you think this theme was chosen at this point in case?
Yes, the theme, I believe, out of the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to our Holy Father, he sees that the old people are being left out of society, are taken to be people who are no longer useful, who are useless. And it is very dangerous because these are the elderly people who are going to hand over to the younger generation so that the church can have a continuation. But if there is this gap that has developed between the younger people and the old people, it is going to be very dangerous. So the Pope comes up with this theme to help us narrow this gap so that the whole church can have a good transition, a good continuation without this distance from the young people being alone, from the old people being alone, and that pain that the old people are experiencing because they are lonely, because they have been neglected, they are in this pain, that pain, and caused by whatever events, whatever circumstances that have come up in a society. And it is only the elderly people who are in this vulnerable situation, but also the younger people. There is something they are missing because the wisdom is with the elderly, and they need to pass it on to the younger people. But the distance is now an obstacle.
Right.
So they need to come together. So this is why I feel this is why the Pope have come up with this theme, and we are working hard now to embrace this theme, not only today, but we shall continue working hard to see that this gap is narrowed, and people can move together, the elderly and the younger people.
Very nice. You talked about how the gap has been widened between the older generation and then the younger generation. And we see Uganda is a very young country with a population of over 75% of people being young. And in a young generation like this, or a young population like this, I think that elders are really needed so much in terms of guidance, in terms of wisdom. And why do you think this celebration is important? How will this help, especially in bridging that gap?
Now, when the structure that we are using is that although it is the day of elderly, the younger people come in, the younger people are involved. It is the day, we call it the elderly and the judges. People are elderly, but people who are grandparents and all of that. So the people when they are celebrating, they don't celebrate alone. They will bring this new younger generation to celebrate together. And during this celebration, that interaction will be made, and the gap somehow will be narrowed, because they are together with the elders. It is through these events of celebrations that attract people, even the younger people, to come together with the elders. So I believe it can, and if it continues, if we continue with this, that gap will keep on being narrowed completely, and things will be move properly.
Very nice. So Emma, if I may ask, who are the people within this theme when we talk about the elderly that are being celebrated, in the context not only of just out there, but also in the context of the Catholic Church? Well, internationally, the Church recognizes at least a person who is from 60 years and above to have reached that elderly age, because that's the age, even in our country, where we reach the retirement age. But for us in Mbuya Parish, we begin from 70, but we shall keep on coming down. We also be uniform with the rest of the world. But it's 60 years and above, because at 60 years, someone has grandchildren, someone has children, and somebody has also retired from work. And you know, when we come to old age, you find that even you begin feeling also your health begins to become weaker and weaker and weaker, and that's when you need some support, some help from other people, either the children you have had, the grandchildren, and when they are not with you, that's when the pain comes in, and you begin now crying according to this theme, that Lord, do not cast me away. So it is that is the situation. Oh, okay. Now, I would like to read here a little bit about what the Vatican said in regard to this celebration. It says, in a note announcing the theme for the day, which will be celebrated on the July 28th, the Vatican said the choice was meant to call attention to the fact that, sadly, loneliness is the bitter lot in life of many elder persons, so often victims of a throwaway culture. Do we see that happening so much in our culture right now in Uganda? How we see the elders actually being left alone and suffering in loneliness in this context, and how can we help them?
Yeah, there is there is really much neglect on the elderly people. The younger generation don't look at old people as useful to them anymore. They feel when they want anything, any information, the internet can do everything. And yet, there is the culture is being eroded actually by being apart from these elderly people. And this has been caused by sometimes the children, when they are growing up, you used to growing up, you find that they have not grown up with the parents. So at that younger generation, the bondage has failed to catch up, because especially like children who grew up in boarding schools, they have only 2 weeks with their parents, and the rest 3 months they are at school. So as they are growing up in this way, there is a little bonding between a parent and a child. So when this parent reaches the old age and the child has grown up, since there is no bonding there, the child feels independent and feels doesn't need actually the parent anymore. And this one is affecting actually some wise people who put up schools. Some wise people, if they are not greedy of income and whatever, they don't really encourage much boarding of younger children from P3, P2, P1. That is the delicate age. And it will affect in the future. Right. So when we don't correct this, that distance will continue growing. But when we correct it, somehow it will come closer and we shall be able to handle it.
Well, thank you so much, Emma. Now that we are celebrating the Elders Day, we've gotten an overview from you as the coordinator. Right now, we are going to invite actually an elder who is going to speak to us about the woes and what they look forward to achieve and some of the things that they actually would want people to know out there in regards to this celebration of the Elder Day. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
UCTV, good news for all. You are watching UCTV, good news for all. For this and more, tune into Kasese Get Radio 100.5 in Western Region, located at the hill of the Diocese of Kasese. KGR brings you all Catholic programs and an advertising platform in all our radio shows like Good Morning Renzori, Chama Tohoka, Ukute, the business show, Propeller, the request show and sports, Evaluation, Bahinga Bakuluka, Late Night Show, and many others. Our other services include Isuzu Tipa, a no car, public address system, live band, Omokekera, an audio recording studio, and outside live broadcast. For more information, call 0773-597-166 or visit our website www.kasesegatradio.com. Kasese Get Radio, Omusondoria, the voice of truth. UCTV, good news for all.
Well, and thank you so much for staying with us as we discuss some of the pertinent issues in our communities and in the country at large. The Catholic Church is celebrating the World Elderly Day today, the 28th of July, 2024. And under the theme, we should not curse, it's actually from the Psalms of 71, telling us not to curse us during our old age. Now, with me in studio, we cannot exactly talk about the elderly without talking with an actual elder, and I would like to welcome you so much for making time to just speak to us. You can introduce yourself, Michael.
Thank you very much for giving an opportunity to come and share a few views with me.
Yes.
The society in general. I am Michael Sizo Mukagolo. To start with, I believe among the elderly people, because next month, on the 15th August, I'll be celebrating my 86th year.
Wow.
86th birthday, yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And therefore, as an elder, I have gone through a number of, I don't know how to call them, stages, phases, or whatever it is.
Yes.
And I've seen a few things. Right from school, right up to where I am.
Right.
To start with, because education is very important. And maybe I can mention a few things.
Yes.
I did my senior 4, 1960. I was at St. Mary's College, Uctv. Then after that, I joined our forestry school at Maswindi, called Nyebeya. I trained for 2 years. I actually started working in the government on 1st May 1963. And I was lucky enough, as the government policy was, by then, most of the training was certificate and diploma. Now, if the government selected, or if the government saw that one had the interest and the potential for further studies,
Right.
he would be selected to go for diploma or university. And as may be aware, but then in the whole of East Africa, there was only one university, Makerere. But Makerere was not offering forestry. And as I had already taken forestry,
Yes.
I was offered a chance to go outside And I left Uganda in 1965.
Yes.
I went to Yugoslavia for my degree work. And I came back in 1970. And I worked through the department. At that time, as it was called, from 63 up to 1993. Because during at that time, the retirement age was 55. So when I clocked 55 years of age, I had to retire. And I retired on 15th August 1993. So now I'm a pensioner from 1993 up to now.
Nice.
That's another 30 years.
Nice.
And I've seen what is happening in Uganda
Yes.
around.
So Elder Michael, thank you so much for that very interesting background of yourself. Today we are talking about the Elders Day, and the Catholic Church is celebrating the Elders Day. Pope Francis, the Holy Pope Francis, said the celebration of the World Elders Day or the Grandparents' Day in 2024 and declared that it should be observed. I mean, he actually declared that in 2021 and said it should be observed every year on Sunday closest to the feast of St. Joachim and St. Anne, Jesus' grandparents. Now, what comes into our mind every time we talk about an elderly person is that they are vulnerable. But all the elder people vulnerable is the question, you know? And what are some of the evidence that we can give that, okay, this person is actually vulnerable than the other?
To start with, when one is in his youth age, he's more or less everywhere in society.
Yes.
Among his equals,
Yes.
the young ones and the elders. And this happens in the schools and outside. But when one grows old, particularly say, if somebody is working, say in the government or wherever he is in close contact with the society, the colleagues, the acquaintances, and the rest. But when one retires, is more or less bound to be at home most of the time. And as may have observed, when one is old, most of the children have left their home. And they are on their own. My own example is that, for instance, my firstborn was the late Flavia Kilabo. She was born in 1965, but now she'll be approaching 60 years. You cannot have children of 60 years still close with you, as you realize. So all the children have more or less left the home. They can only be grandchildren come back to you to see you. But that's the situation is now with education. Most of the grandchildren are also in schools. They only come back to see you once in a while during the holidays. So, at home, you are more or less bound to be you, your wife, and probably your mate, and the close relatives. But you are what I would call the family members. The kinsfolk have left you. They have got their own circles where they are living. And that is when old age comes in, that you are more or less on your own, in your home. And if people don't come and visit you regularly, you may feel rather isolated. And naturally, the more one stays alone, the more I feel isolated. And also his way of thinking may be disturbed because they don't have people to talk with. Almost probably may not even be able to know what is going on around if you're not reading newspapers or is not seeing the TV, whereby he or she be cut off. And that is an effect of old age.
I see old age comes with a lot of challenges, really, including the loneliness that has been pointed out, the isolation, and how can we help the elderly to get about this challenge, to go about some of these challenges? What would you want us to see? What would you want from us, the younger generation, to help in this period where you feel most vulnerable, most left out, isolated, and all these other things that come with being an elder?
One fact we cannot deny that old age goes with the health problems. As one grows older, his strength, his physical ability, and even the health in general becomes less, becomes weaker. And that requires maybe going to the hospital, consulting doctors and other people to give advice on how to live better. And that vulnerability also goes with something which is very important now. Two major factors: the social status, as I mentioned earlier, when one feels a cut off, but also there is the economical aspect. When one is in the old age, with problems with health, diet, this and that, the issue of income becomes very, very important if one does not have, say, regular income to purchase this and that or that for one's needs. And as I mentioned earlier on, my experience is that when one retires from service, he or she may be getting a pension, but again, that depends. The amount one gets will depend at what level one retired. Because the government pension depends on the level at retirement when calculated in their formula. But income becomes a real problem, as I've mentioned. Medicaments, home needs, this and that, they are very important in one's life. And the social aspect, particularly if one is not able to move here and there, because his strength is weak. And the two, if one does not have what I would call health assistance, which is natural. Personally, I thank God that, in spite of my age, at least I'm still able to do quite a number of things on my own.
Right.
For instance, I can still read a newspaper without glasses.
Nice.
Yes. I am walking without the need of a stick.
Nice.
And other things. But I must also admit that we, the old people, must be grateful to God. Because while you talk of assistance, this and that from our colleagues, He's the best provider of everything. And without Him, nothing can come out. And what I also mentioned, these days when I read the newspapers, when I'm on the TV, I find the government and the society in general, they are urging all the people to do some sort of physical exercises to keep them. Me, I was lucky, because my profession alone, forestry, is considered as a paramilitary. And by being paramilitary, it means there are a lot of things we did during our early years,
Right.
and which are now very, very important, because I'm moving, I can do this and that. I don't find it difficult to walk.
Right.
I don't find it difficult to move fast. And therefore, I feel that all in all, age has got its own negative factors. But those who are in position should help those who are old in age, particularly those who cannot stay in good health, and they probably may not even be in position to sustain themselves, because the conditions of living or the environment in which we live, both social and economic, mean a lot in one's life.
Very nice indeed. Well, thank you so much, Elder Michael. And I must say I am very amazed and amused by the fact that you are in your 80s, late 80s,
Yes.
and you walk by yourself. Your mind is sharp and you remember the dates so well, as you were telling us about the dates, chronological dates on your life. I believe you are in good health, and it's just amazing to find elderly people still very articulate and with a mass knowledge of wealth. And we just want to thank you so much for making
Maybe one point which I'd like to mention is that personally, I am also a mountaineer.
Mountaineer.
Yes.
Yes.
When I talk of mountaineer, I climbed up the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro, 1964.
Amazing.
I have my badge.
Amazing.
And when I remember those days when I went to Kenya, to the school at Loitoktok, I remember, yes, that was life.
Amazing. So probably it's one of those decisions or some of the things that you did in your youthful age that has kept you well up to now and properly very physically fit. Well, thank you so much, Elder Michael. You bring on very pertinent issues and very, very important topics there of discussion of how the elders should actually be helped in their vulnerability, in their old age. And it's upon us, the youthful people, actually to take that step to help the old people. Now that we have talked to an elder, we are going to take a break, and then we are going to bring up a youthful person and just discuss how can the youth bridge the gap between the elder and the young.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
It has been an opportunity for me.
Thank you, Michael.
UCTV, good news for all.
Dear children, friends of Jesus, you are welcome to your program. I'm Dorothy Atire Songo.
Be with us all.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord Jesus. A prayer for church leaders.
We pray for their well-being.
May the Almighty God guide and lead them through their missions.
We pray to the Lord.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
UCTV, good news for all.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on UCTV News. I am Nora Sende. We are still talking about a celebration that is ongoing today, the 28th of July, 2024. We are celebrating the elders in our communities. The elders do play a very important role, and we need to actually appreciate them for the great work that they do and just appreciate them for being elders. Now, this day actually was made to be celebrated by the Holy Pope Francis that chose the line from Psalm 71, "Do not cast me off in my old age." We cannot celebrate the elders without bringing in the young people, and we have here Michael, who is a very youthful man who is going to talk to us about how do we bridge the gap between the elders and the young people. Michael, you're so welcome. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Nora. Good evening, dear viewers. My name is Michael Chiza Ranyichiro, a youth from Our Lady of Africa Parish in Mbuya, and also a youth leader from St. Daniel Kombonisa Parish of the same parish. I am a teacher by profession, working with Upper College in Mbuya, and also a social worker as a field secretary in the Catholic Workers Movement. And I'm glad to have celebrated this day with our elders with the theme of bridging the gap and not to leave the elder alone. And so I'm happy to be here to share my experience and also on behalf of the young, their experience.
Well, we are happy to have you, Michael. And as you have noticed, as a young person, you've seen how there is a very wide gap between the young people and the elderly. We'll find the elders, in most cases, cast away in loneliness, in poor health, not provided for, not loved, and not cared for. It has characterized so many of our communities, unfortunately, and we've seen that we need to bridge that gap. But before we bridge that gap, we need to understand why exactly is this happening at this point in time?
Yes, the fact is there is a gap. I can testify. And why is it happening? We, the youth, have forgotten that old is gold. I mean, we have forgotten that there is a lot we need to get from the aged. And we tend to think that what we need is out there in our peers, in our social circles, and yet we have the knowledge back home, even near, close to us. So the main reason is because we think we know more than they do. And we think we don't need them, and probably we think we have all what we need. So that being the case, we create a gap. We tend to move so fast, just like everything is moving so fast. There's a saying that the world is moving so fast, shouldn't leave you behind. And we think now for them, they have had their share, we should have ours too. And so we move very fast, we leave a gap. And because of that, the elderly have become vulnerable because they don't have much of our time. And then we too think we are vulnerable because we need to know what they knew in their time in a different way. And yet we can borrow a leaf from them. That's why something, when it grows old, it gains value. But unfortunately, when the cloth grows old, you throw it away, maybe you put it aside, or maybe you destroy it, which is not the case with humanity. We should treasure them. We need to treasure them, which we're not doing. So that has created a big, very big gap. Our schedules, our work schedules, our ambitions have made us go touring, moving, and then exploring, and then we leave something behind which we really need the most.
Right. Our schedules and all this that we have talked about, some of the things that are actually widening the gap between the elderly and the youthful people, which is very sad because you would imagine at this point in time, this is a time that every young person should be reaching out to an elderly person out there, one way or the other. One of the things that has also affected the gap between the elderly and the youth is the moral decadence in our society. Our cultures and the values that their warriors have so much eroded. Don't you think so?
Yeah, that's right, because we are being taught by the world now. We are educated by the world, of which what is coming from the world, I mean the global village as we have it on our smartphones. I need something, I don't need to ask my grandpa, I need to ask Google. I need some knowledge in class, I don't need to ask my grandpa, I need to go to these other apps maybe to inquire, and then I give answers. So that has created an element of dependence to this. Now, as we are depending on the knowledge searching, we also depend on the extra immoral knowledge that comes with that, because we don't know the ambitions of people who share the knowledge. Some have different ambitions, some have different intentions, so when they share that, it goes it comes to us, and then we get a share of that immoral bit of it. You find that you're searching for how do they prepare this recipe, and then before you get the knowledge, they bring you, a message pops up. You can actually live chat in the night because of this. And then before you realize, your mind is taken because you are exploring, and then you get to know what is the other side, and before you realize, your morals are diverted, and then they become decayed, and then they are not pleasant. So that has affected our morals too.
Yes.
But also our ambitions. We are curious to know, and yet we are not guided. So we are curious to know, how will this be, how can this be, and then we are not guided, and then we end up going astray, and our morals become bad. Actually, that's why you find today youth are demanding demands that are not necessary to them, because what they need is left behind.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked about, when you talk about what they need, I feel like the church has a profound role in influencing how we treat one another in society.
Exactly.
Did you think it's high time the youthful people went back to the church teaching about love, about compassion, and about just, you know, how we treat one another?
Yes, the church teaches us to live in a community. And living in a community means sharing what you have, knowledge, food, whatever, together. In Mbuya, for example, the church guided us to have a community gathering, maybe around the fire, like it used to be in the old days, which we call the choto. Now, in the choto, you gather around the youth and the elderly. And then you get back to those old days when you have to learn from the source and not from the third party of the source. So because of that, the church helps us to get quality information. And then because of that, we also have a platform to bring out our intentions, our problems, what pains us. If I see an elder in front of me and I have the opportunity to tell the elder that I have a bad experience with my grandma because I was abandoned when I was young. And then how can I overcome that? So the elderly is able to give me ways of how to overcome it, and then that helps us. So the church is playing a big role in that, but also the church is calling the youth to come back and participate and serve. I mean, you know, by catechism we are created to know God, love God, and serve Him. But serving God and knowing God and loving Him is also to know your neighbor, loving your neighbor, and serving your neighbor. So we are called to serve in the church, to take readings, to do ushering, because we have the energy that is needed. I mean, Mr. Michael Kagolo will not move the whole 2 hours in church ushering, but I can. And then we are called to go in the field to extend the helping hand charity, like that day, that time when the Samaritans have to go out and extend help. The elderly need the young to do that work, because by doing so, we learn from experience. We do not only learn from what they have told us, the elders, on the choto kind of maybe, but also we learn by doing. And when we do that, then the knowledge and the values and the cultures that enhance our humanity as a community, as a person, and our morals, as the church recommends, is enhanced. And then life becomes better, and we believe tomorrow can be better. So that gap is bridged in that way. And remember, when I meet you around the choto, I cannot again meet you on the way and I bypass you. I'll definitely remember. If I do, then you remember, but I was with you. And then I have to stop and lower myself and maybe greet you, share with you, and then life moves on like that.
Exactly. So it's a very wonderful initiative of the choto that actually your parish is doing to integrate and to just, you know, narrow that gap between the young people and the elders. I'm just wondering, what best can young people do to make the life of the elders a little more better or comfortable in our day-to-day living? Yes,
I'll give a scenario of a home setting. A young need to give time to the elderly. To give time, just to give time and listen, laugh with them, talk to them, tell them their problems, and then the elderly will feel that psychological wellness, that I have someone who can share with me, which is not there. So the young, in all our busy schedules, at least a little time to say hello to your grandma, to your grandpa, or to even your elder. And by doing so, you're creating a bond, or you are recreating the bond that perhaps may have been separated or tarnished in one way or the other. Yeah. The youth can also remember to seek wisdom from the elderly. Now, like I said at first, when you give time to them, then you get wisdom from them, because definitely they will tell you their experience. And you realize it will be more fun than when you're on your phone and internet. So the other thing is that we tend to have too many things that occupy us to the extent that we fail to deliver. So the youth need to limit their ambitions. I am, for example, I'll use myself. I am a teacher, I am needed at school. I am a youth leader, I am needed at church. I am a social worker, I'm needed in the field. If I do not plan and manage my schedules and say maybe this is priority, this is not, I need to leave this, I need to start with this, then I will not find time for my elder. And it makes it worse if you moved away from home, because definitely, like Elder Michael Kagolo said, that once we grow up, we have to move because we have to look for our survival. It's not good to depend on the elderly all the time. My mother one time said, you also go out and bring me bread, and then we laugh. Yeah. So when we move out, wherever we go, whatever we do, then we need to manage our schedules and remember to go back home and then utilize the time with our parents. People usually do it in Christmas seasons, but that is once in a year. Even if it is Easter, that is twice in a year. But I mean, the elders don't need much. Right. If I am at work, I am needed by my boss 24/7, or maybe a full week, a call can do. I make a call to my grandma, to my mother, my father, and I say, hello, how are you? Are you okay? Do you need this? Can I give this? That alone relieves the person. Right. And then it bridges the gap even when physical availability is not there. Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's really one of the things that I think as young people should do in regards to helping to narrow that gap between the elderly and the youth. And as we celebrate the Elders' Day today, I hope the youth can actually use this time to just reflect on what else they can do better to make an elder's life more easier and better. And so in regards to that, thank you so much, Michael, for speaking with us as a youthful person. Yes, before we break this off, we'll have another simple short interview from Esther, who is generally all about the coordination of the elderly, just to give an overview of what exactly is transpiring and why it is important to celebrate the elders today.
UCTV, good news for all.
Radio Patches, the best value-based community radio in Eastern Africa, running 24/7 with professional staff and solar energy backup of up to 500 kilowatts peak. We rock the whole of northern Uganda and the world using 7 languages on 90.9 FM and 94.5 FM in Arua on Ediofe Hill, 99.7 FM at Moyo on Adua Hill, 101.4 FM at For God in Gulu, and online at www.radiopatches.org or download the Radio Patches app from Google Play Store and Apple Store. Radio Patches, peace of Christ for all.
UCTV, good news for all.
Thank you so much for staying with us as we discuss these pertinent issues in our community. Today we are celebrating the Elders' Day in the church, and We have talked to a couple of people right now. We've talked to the elders, we've talked to the youth. We are now changing our direction to the church. And Esther here. Esther, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. I can't wait to discuss this topic with you.
Thank you.
Yes, you can kindly introduce yourself and just tell us what you do.
My name is Esther, Mrs. Esther Moro. I don't want to go much into the details of where I come from, but I've been on the street from 2019, working with the elderly and the disabled with the Komboni team. I have quite a number of experience I had with the team, but for the sake of this presentation, I would base myself on to the findings we had this week when we moved into the community of Our Lady of Africa, Mbuya. We managed to interact with a number of elders and the youth. Our youth representative already presented to you the charter and the findings that he shared with you. Out of this, I want to go specifically onto the areas that concern the church. I told you I'd been with a priest, Father John Piton, from 98 to 2000 when he went back and later died. And the recommendation that I have is the recommendation we found from the community that responds to the church need, the intervention that we would expect from the church. We've already heard that there's a wide gap between the youth and the elderly. And the recommendation that we had was that if the church would help and come up with counselors. I know some of the churches already have, others still don't have.
So these counselors, will they be counseling the elders or the young?
More or less mediators, for that matter, because if we are visitors to each other, sometimes you can't mentor either your enemy or a visitor. You need somebody to bridge that gap. And I think the charter was brought as one of the strategy, where the two will sit together with somebody to be a mediator. And the other bit was that since these elders lose strength, some of them are bedridden, others can't move themselves to the church. Some of the team recommended that we have ministers of the Eucharist, especially the sacraments, and they would love if these numbers were increased. In Mbuya, we had two sisters, one of Secretariat of Jesus and another one a Komboni sister. For the last 3 months, they have been moving in the community, but I'm telling you, the demand is overwhelming, and many times they didn't meet the demand.
I can imagine.
So the elders are saying, can we increase, can our catechists be trained? If there's need, can the church open up that scope of the catechists also going with the Eucharist?
Oh, yes.
Because remember, these are people who brought us to faith, and they knew where they were taking us. So we cannot leave them.
Oh, yes.
We have to also support them to reach up to the next entry.
Oh, yes.
So that was their
And
request.
with old age comes things like inability to walk, the loss of strength.
Yes.
And you find that even the elders need spiritual nourishment.
It's true.
And so I think you're bringing out a very pertinent issue of having ministers actually go out into the communities and minister to the elderly.
It's true. And the other bit was the discussion which we have already, as Mbuya, Our Lady of Africa, have already picked up on, open discussion with the youth. It will bring that aspect of understanding each other. We realize they don't know what the other one goes through.
Is this part of the Choto?
Yes.
So that's when they come together and they have an open discussion.
Yes. Last year we had a debate which we introduced in our school, and we told them, debate your role as youth and the role of the elders. It was like to open their mind to see that as much as we've been underlooking these people, actually they are, and we were glad that actually they brought out points that others were not aware of. So,
but how far does this Choto go? Is it a one-time discussion and everyone goes their way? Because I can believe it would be nice for it's to cultivate a long-lasting relationship that continues even after the Choto. What are the dynamics in that?
I'm glad to say that initially we were trying to come up with Choto before every other activity for the elder. But this time round we were told by the youth that we need this often. So how often? It is the team to go and sit down and agree on how often. And also I was glad that some elderly were saying, I don't even have time for my own children. So if I can advise them to come and sit down here with you at the church, it will be a great. So I believe it is really beneficial. It's both to the elders and leave alone the parents themselves who at times are too busy to attend to the needs of their own children. And then the other thing was what came out from our discussion with the elder was that there's overburden. They knew by the time they brought up their children, they trained them, they educated, they graduated, that was done. They were expecting the other side to help. But many times their children are still jobless. And I remember this particular elder who told me there are other faiths that are trying to work this around. They're even linking up with the other side, and youth are being trained and they are taken to be employed in safe hands. So I was saying, why don't the Catholic Church also look at those options of trying to see how to keep the youth busy? We've talked enough, we've complained, we've cursed. I remember there was one who cursed even the children, but that's not a solution. The solution is that we try to get a solution right from the root other than trimming the branches.
And also sometimes it becomes a problem when convincing an elder that actually this youth is not helping you just because he is unable to right now, not because he does not want to.
Very true.
And striking that balance, that making them understand that if this youth was able to help you, you would be in a better position. And so that's where it comes in a little bit of misunderstanding, because as the youth are growing up, there's a lot that has been put into them by the elders, and they expect that to come back, to them. But the situation sometimes may not be the same.
It's true.
And so you are appealing to the Catholic Church to have some of these training programs to help the Catholic youth, to equip them with skills so that they can actually have hands-on skills to go back and help in case they get something to do.
It's very true. I think the other bit is that the elders themselves as well need like sort of sensitization. Some of them do not know what takes place, like especially this lady who gave about the youth unemployed at home was living together with the children.
Yes.
But I imagine if this was somebody living far from the children, somebody in the maybe up country, the children have all come this side, they are taking one meal a day. And at the end of the day, may end up cursing, I spent all these years helping this youth, and now they have abandoned us. So at the end of the day, we need also like part of the spiritual upbringing or the spiritual guidance, we should be able to counsel these people that as much as your child, at times I tell people don't give out because you expect something from them. High expectation actually is one of the key challenges to our elders. The same with the youth. They expect so much from the parents expect so much. So we need somebody, a mediator as well, to say, you know what, you help your children as your responsibility. Can you kindly let them do their part, irrespective of whether they are doing this or, and you pray for them. And the other bit that came was innovations. I think to avoid idleness, they talked of encouraging the youth to join church activities. A number of youth during the Choto said, but you all seated on the jobs. All the jobs, we knew there was retirement age and you are there. Even beyond retirement, where do we get the jobs? So at the end of the day, I know this is a bigger thing, but still as a church, we can, instead of pushing people from their seats, we can try to engage the youth in some other things in the church. I think those are the things. But above all, I think from both sides, I would say, we are all Christians. I know the youth expect us to be role models as elders, as adults, but I think the biggest to role model us is Christ. So if you're looking at a role model totally to your parent, you get disappointed. I tell people, supposing tomorrow you hear that your bishop has left the church, will you also leave? No, Christ hasn't left the church. So our role model as Christians is Christ. And whatever we do, if you, as an elderly, you decide to hold your children and instead of blessing them, you want to curse them because of here and there, kindly think, what would have Christ done? If you're a youth, you've got a lot of bitterness from the way you were parented, can you please see what Jesus would have done in such a situation? I think it will help us much to go a way forward. And to end it up, I want to thank our team that came on board. The Good Samaritan, I have been working so much with the Good Samaritan team from Owino, mobile sub-parish. I've worked with Christ the King, with support of Christ the King. We work with Namugongo. Mbuya has done a great deal. And I thank God so much for the team that came today to do this presentation. I hope it's just a beginning. We will continue to work in the parish. We'll continue to make sure that our elderly feel themselves loved. Even the youth will accept our elders as they are. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Well, thank you so much, Esther, really, and thank you, the entire team that has made it today to just discuss and celebrate the Elderly's Day today, Sunday, the 28th of July, 2024. Well, it has been very, very, very enlightening and very inspiring, really, when you look at it. We all have a role to play, and just like Esther has concluded it, Christ is our role model, and we should look unto Christ as the author and the finisher of everything in our character, in our ways, in everything that we do. Really, we should look up to Christ in the things we do, not as a youth but also as an elder, and that will make life a little bit easier for each and everyone. It has really been nice having you, and thank you so much for taking time for watching this very TV. I am Nora Osende. Until next time, do have yourself a lovely evening and a good night.